Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And this episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. How we doing today, Spoon?
I'm doing excellent today. It's a crisp fall day, and I actually got to sleep in a little for a change, so I'm raring to go with an exciting episode of Martins and More.
Sleep in, what's that?
Exactly.
Do you have anybody you'd like to introduce me to today, or is it just going to be us?
Well, no, we know we have a very special guest today. It is a musician that's probably known to a great many of our podcast listeners. And so we could bring him in without any introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. It is the very talented journeyman guitarist, Craig Thatcher.
He's in the building!
Hey, everybody.
Now that is a catch. It's good to have you, Craig. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on board.
Where did I see you before?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've seen him all over the place. And I noticed, on your own website, in your bio, you do mention a short list of some of the serious musicians that you have collaborated with over the years or appeared on bills with, and many, big-name celebrity musicians people would know about. And you also mention your association that developed with the Martin Guitar Company that we'll be diving into. And yet, you remain an international man of mystery, because it it fails to mention where you're from, where were you born, where'd you grow up, or anything about your early days of how you got bit with the blues bug and the guitar bug.
Well, I used to have a bio that had all that stuff in it, but it just got too long. So, I'm actually from Quakertown, Pennsylvania. And I was born in 1956. And of course, that was a rock and roll year. I think big year for Elvis. So my father, I'm sure, was listening to Elvis. And as I grew up, in the early 60s, I have a brother who was 6 years older than me. So he would bring home the latest 45s. My parents were into like show tunes. And my dad liked country, and he liked Elvis a whole lot, anything like that. But as I learned later on, a lot of the songs that he used to sing to me when I was a kid, my brothers and I, were Hank Williams songs. I'm not sure where he heard that, but he's from Hellertown, Pennsylvania, not too terribly far from here, outside of the Lehigh Valley. Apparently he was a Hank Williams fan. So I grew up listening to all sorts of music. My mom would play piano. My father would sing. He had a brilliant, deep, rich voice. And my brother brought home all these records, Roy Orbison, Trini Lopez, you name it. A lot of the, not so much in the blues, but the popular stuff. And then, of course, if we fast forward to 1964, all the Beatles stuff started coming home. And that's what really got it for me when we watched, along with millions of others, when we watched in that February, that cold February night, the Ed Sullivan Show, on a little black and white television set. I thought, wow, what a job.
Yeah, I barely remember that one. I think I was 4. I wasn't even 4, actually, for the first show. But my whole family watched it as well. But when did you pick up a guitar for the first time in any real way?
Well, my dad had a guitar that he got when he was 8 years old. As a matter of fact, I have a picture out in the other room here in our living room, a sepia tone picture from 1933, where he's holding his guitar with my grandparents and his aunt. It wasn't a Martin. It wasn't a. They couldn't afford a Martin back then. Depression times, and father was a railroad worker, and I mean, my grandfather was a railroad worker, and my dad would end up being a railroad worker for the Bethlehem Steel, but of course he was only 8 years old at this time. And that guitar is the guitar that I had to start on. Now, an interesting fact, my father was left-handed, but he did play the guitar right-handed, but he wrote and did everything else left-handed. So when he would play the cowboy chords, he only played in the money frets, first three frets, and strumming chords. But in '68, after viewing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, I started taking guitar lessons on that guitar. And that's what I had to stay with, that acoustic guitar, which had high action, was not easy for a little kid to play, but they wanted to make sure that I was really serious about it before they would invest in anything else. So I spent a good 2.5, 3 years on that guitar.
Wow.
Kind of like a gym workout when you're doing those high frets when you're young.
Yeah, absolutely. Build up my fingers.
How long was it before you actually landed on your first Martin guitar, or is that later in the story?
It's much later. It's much later. I was promised a Martin guitar at a very early age. You do well in school, keep your nose clean, as my father used to say, and we'll get you a Martin guitar. That didn't come until decades later. And
Wow.
It was kind of roundabout way that I got it, but I attribute it to my parents. It was an inheritance from when my mother passed away. That wasn't the first one, but that was the one that I say, that's the one that they bought for me. So I'll get into that.
Oh, wow. Wow, cool story. Well, you grew up rock and roll era, so did you gravitate to electric guitars first?
Of course. I had the acoustic guitar, I'm playing it, but I'm lusting after an electric guitar. The shapes, the way they sounded, everything about it. The Beatles. And then came Eric Clapton and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers for me. The next year, Jimi Hendrix. How could you not be influenced, if you're a guitar player, by electric guitar? I mean, it was everywhere. And it just looked so sexy and sounded great. And I just wanted to be playing something like that. So I really pretty quickly switched over. Once I was able to, and I got my first Kent electric guitar. I think I was in 6th grade. So that would have been somewhere around 66. Or no, a little bit later. I got a Kent electric guitar, and then I pretty much set the acoustic guitar aside to play this fine, high-quality Kent. Probably cost 60, $70,
So your blues breaker influence, when did you move into... Now, of course, Clapton wasn't playing Fenders yet by then, but so just very quickly, give us drop some model names of the guitars you evolved through in your early playing. Okay,
so the Kent was first, and my dad and my grandmother got together and bought that guitar for me, and I had a little Premier amplifier, a Twin 8 Premier amplifier, and then the next thing was in '68. We went up to a local music store, and of course I wanted a Fender Stratocaster, but I ended up getting a Hagstrom 3, which I still have to this day. It's hanging on the wall here. And that was Hagstrom's version of a Stratocaster. And they advertised it with the world's fastest neck, the world's slimmest, fastest neck. And it really is a little skinny neck. So then Christmas of '69, my father and I are in Quakertown. We're walking down the main street, which is Broad Street, and Signs Music Center had a big showcase. And in the showcase window, he had a Christmas tree. And one of those lights, do you remember those lights that would revolve around and sparkle on artificial trees? It would be like red, green, and blue, or yellow or something, 3 different colors. And right in front of that tree was a gold top Les Paul Deluxe. And this light shining on it, and it was just the most beautiful guitar I had ever seen. I didn't really know anything about Les Pauls because at that time, obviously no internet. There was Guitar Player magazine, which was still relatively new in its infancy. And I still have all those early issues, by the way. But I would go to the school library, and we got it at the school and that I went to, and I would read Guitar Player magazine, and I learned about guitars, what was available at that point. They got a lot more involved and in depth as the 70s came along. But initially, the little bit that I knew, was from that magazine. And so I had heard of a Gibson Les Paul, but that was about it. So I had an opportunity at that point. We went into the store and we made a deal on that guitar, but it was like, are you sure you want to buy a new one? You can get a used one a lot less money. Now, this is 1969. So you could pick up a used 50s Les Paul pretty cheap. Cheaper than what I paid for this deluxe new, which was $380 with a case, right? I could have picked up something for $250, $300, probably a 58 or 59, but I wanted new. I didn't know anything about vintage guitars. So I had a paper route, and I worked in a restaurant on Saturdays, and it took me a year to pay off that guitar. I took money down every week. And the store owner, who became a good friend, who I later on worked for, Dale Sign, he said, after like 2 months, he said to my dad, hey, he can take it home. He's really reliable and paying this thing off. My dad said, no way. He pays it off before he brings it home. So that's what I had to do. So that was my first really brand name, decent guitar. It was heavy, had a big neck, but I loved the guitar.
Unbelievably heavy from that era.
Yeah.
So you primarily played rock and roll, and with a big focus on the blues from your various influences. And
yes.
how did you become associated with modern guitar? When did that take place?
Well, we got to fast forward quite a bit. Let's go to 2003. I was playing. Well, I had met Dick Boak in the 70s. I did meet Dick, but I really didn't have a relationship with Martin at that time. Fast forward 2003. I'm playing at a little Italian restaurant in Coopersburg, Pennsylvania, on Wednesday nights. One Wednesday night, the Martin upper management team, including Dick and Chris, they all came in for dinner. It was like 10 folks there. And I vaguely knew who the people were to say hello, but that was about it. And after a few songs, Chris Martin came up to me and he said, hey, what are you doing next, whatever night of the week, Tuesday night, say. What are you doing next Tuesday night? I said, what would you like me to be doing, Mr. Martin? He says, well, we're having a board meeting and I need some entertainment. I'd like you to play. And little did I know at that time, of course I did it, but little did I know that was the opening for me, my association with Martin guitar.
So you passed the audition.
I guess I did, yeah.
Would you agree it's always easier to pass the audition when you don't think it's an audition?
Exactly. Nerves weren't there. I'm just doing my regular routine thing. I had started doing acoustic solo and duo gigs back in the early 90s. I was just doing, because we were working 6 and 7 nights a week. I mean, the band had Sunday nights, steady Sundays. We had steady Tuesday night work. Of course, Wednesday was a given, but Tuesdays and Sundays we had, as the Brits would say, we had residencies at several places, just a regular gig,
Wow,
cool.
So then I supplemented that with a Monday night, a regular Monday night gig at the Peppercorn Pub again, right on Route 309 in Quakertown, in Coopersburg, which the place is no longer there. They've raised it. It's now a Wawa or something. And I had that as a Monday night thing. And it's like, the owner had asked me, did you ever think of doing this? And it's like, well, no, I hadn't, thought of just going out with an acoustic guitar and playing, but I'll do it, for $100, man, on a Monday night. Yeah, I'll do that. So that's when I really started. I was still playing it like strumming and playing like I play on an electric on the acoustic, if you know what I'm talking about. I was just kind of transferring that. I didn't approach it like an acoustic guitar yet. That came later.
A lot of people started out that way that came from an electric guitar background, which is one of the reasons they used to complain about the big fat market necks in those days. But the first time I heard your name, Dick was talking about you. This goes back many years, but he referred to you as the world's only sanctioned Eric Clapton tribute act, and which was very impressive. And he was saying it, he was very impressed by that himself. And when did that start, and how long was that your main sort of thrust?
Well, I don't know if it was the world's only, but Dick, what we did is I wanted to start doing shows in better venues, theaters, performing arts centers, because I had worked with certain artists that we did those types of events, and I spent so many years in bars, and nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, it's a great way to get going and get started. But after a while, the hours, when we used to start at 10 o'clock and go till 2, or if you're down at the shore, go till 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, I was just getting tired. I was just getting tired of that sort of thing. And I wanted to move on. And I ran into an attorney, Seth Weber. He was a USDA, and really awesome guy. And he said, "Hi, I'd like to help you with your career." Had nothing to do with music, but he said to me, "I'd like to help you with your career." I said, "Well, what can we do?" He says, "Well, are there places you'd like to play that you're not?" And I put a list of about half a dozen theaters down. And within weeks, he had gigs booked at those theaters. I explained to him, I said, I want to do a theme show, and I think the first show that I want to do is I want to put together a Clapton retrospective. And that's what we called it, Eric Clapton retrospective. And I want to be clear, we don't dress up. I don't, try to look like he did at various times. There was a time in the late 80s, early 90s, when that Journeyman album came out, he and I had a real similar appearance. Like, there's some pictures that it's striking, but it just evolved like that. My wife cut my hair a certain way, and there it was. So we weren't trying to copy. I just wanted to pay tribute to the music and the style that I had worked on, and just kind of by osmosis, absorbed that just by playing it so much. The sound, whether it was the Cream sound, the Blues Breakers sound, and the sound that he got with Derek and the Dominoes moving forward with the Stratocaster. So that is what I wanted to do. I started working on it with the band. This fellow, our good friend Seth Weber, put it together for us, and we started working. Sellersville Theater, Mock Chunk Opera House, the State Theater. We ended up doing the Music Fest in Bethlehem. I started there in 1989, and we're still doing it today. I just finished my 35th year. Wow. 2010, I believe it was, is when the cafe actually opened up. And we were the first, Steve Miller was the first private event there. We were the first public event in I'm sure it was 2010. And we've done dozens of events there since then. But that was another showcase room that I wanted to work with our theme shows. So again, the first one being the Clapton show. So that's what we still do it today. We still, not as frequently as we had been doing it, but we still do the show today.
Very cool. So now I'd like to turn this over to our like hardcore professional griller to really grill you on your association with Martin guitar. All right, Maury, let him have it.
Uh-oh. Here's why I'm going to look like an idiot. Yeah.
Well, so we match, This my first question for you is right there, and it's probably a longer answer than this podcast has time to collect. How do you juggle being a solo artist, being a collective that does the not the tributes, but the retrospectives, and at what stage did you realize you have to do both, do the Martin clinics and the Martin side of things, and when does it let you gig? Like, is there a way to balance that, or are they different times of the year?
Well, it's definitely a balance. The Martin work during the summer is not, Chris, I travel pretty much exclusively now with Chris Martin. That's what we do. That was like pre-pandemic. There were, maybe we go out several times a year. We go to Asia, we go to Europe, we go through to Canada together. But I traveled with the DSMs, the district sales managers, and with the international folks all the time. Like, it got to be like I was on the road a lot. There was 10-year period there that I was gone I was gone a lot. I enjoy it. I enjoy traveling. I didn't know it was going to get that busy, but I was certainly grateful for it because our lifestyle changed a lot. It really did. And so at that point, I knew that Martin was a priority. I put that at the top of the list. Everything else comes second to what I do with Martin guitar. And, growing up in this area, I'm, 30 minutes from the factory, indoctrinated in it since I'm a little kid. This is like a dream come true. Yeah, I wanted to be a rock star like everybody else when we were kids. That wasn't going to happen. And I realized that pretty quickly. But this opportunity, oh man, it's just as equal to me. I mean, working with the greatest acoustic guitar maker and the longevity, the family connection, everything about Martin. Yeah. We could talk for hours about that. So that is a priority, and everything else comes under that. And that's what the rest of the band players, everybody realizes that that's what we do.
Yeah, every guitar player everywhere called, they want their dream job back, right?
Wow. It's amazing. And it's not, I'm not Tommy Emmanuel. I'm not one of these virtuoso, flashy. I just bring something to the table, and I'm passionate about it. They know they can rely on me. They can depend on me. Chris says, hey, I want to do this. I'm there. We do it. It just works.
Well, I've seen you enough times, on that job altogether, and I recognize that the times that I've watched closely to see what you're doing, there is no doubt in my mind in the audience that when Chris wants to describe this guitar, have you talk about the guitar, and here's what it sounds like, there's no gap. There's no wishing that somebody in a different style could really show that what that guitar does. You fit into that perfectly. And I mean, Spoon's seen it as many times as I have. It's a real treat to have Chris Martin tell you about something, have you finish the sentence, and then have you play that in a style that's appropriate. I don't know that a Tommy Emmanuel would do that more justice, more than showing off chops, but I've enjoyed it thoroughly the times I've seen it.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you the truth. It is not about me. And I quickly realized, you set the ego aside. It's about Martin guitars. And I'm not out there hawking CDs. I don't bring guitar picks with my names on or strings or anything. It's about what I can do to make the guitar fit the story or make the music on a certain style of guitar fit the story that Chris is telling. And for instance, last week we were in Nashville. We go to Nashville at least once a year, sometimes twice. And we did George's podcast, George Groon's podcast on Friday. Saturday, we're presenting at the Country Music Hall of Fame, which was awesome.
Wow.
Sunday, we did the Nashville Guitar Center, which was awesome as well. All three different events. And when we're down there, okay, so when we go to different regions, we ship the guitars that have a connection to that particular region. So we did a lot of country artist signature models last week. And then Chris likes me to play not the things that I'm used to playing, but things that those artists that are associated. Oh, it's, doing some Hank Williams and Marty Robbins and Roseanne Cash, all this sort of stuff. So then this past Friday, we're at the Guitar Center in Manhattan up on 14th. And so we have a different set of guitars that have a connection to New York City, whether it's the folk era, Roger McGuinn writing at the Brill Building, you name it. It's got a connection. Even the David Crosby, the D18, the regular D18, which is, I say regular, but it's a gorgeous signature model. Crosby, Stills, and Nash have a new album just being released. I think it just came out or it's about to come out. It's from the Fillmore East, something that they found from 1969. So there's a connection there. There's a connection, a Crosby connection with New York City from that particular. And it just happened to coincide with our event at Guitar Center. So that's what we do. And I just try to make it, do justice. If I get my own chance, I'll play country blues. I'll play Merle Travis, Jerry Reed, that kind of stuff. Once in a while, I get to do that. But otherwise, I'm doing what is appropriate for the guitar and for the artist, for the region. That's how we tie it on.
Well, and previously he did his traveling show where he talked about going back to Mark Newkirk in Saxony and basically the history of the Martin guitar, where you got to demonstrate some of the seriously vintage, 19th century Martins, on up through and most recently the Hawaiian music craze that started in 1912 and led to Martin and Washburn and Lyon Healy and all of these other people in Gibson making steel string guitars for the Hawaiian music craze that was going on at that time. So that was, there again, as Maury said, every other guitarist dream job, you got it. So, but you do it extremely well. So as
thank you.
It's just great stuff. So
I told Chris, as long as he wants to do this, then I'm there. When as long as you want to keep going, you can count on me.
So he actually took you to Mexico. You went to Mexico as part of the 35th anniversary of Martin's production facility in Navajoa, Sonora. And there, and you got a bit of a surprise down there, as I recall. Would you like to go into that a little bit?
So we'll back up just a minute. We were going to Phoenix, and we did a great little acoustic shop there. Acoustic Vibes, wonderful, high-end Martin guitars. Really great place, great folks and great instruments. And then we did the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. Now, Dick and I had performed there about 5 or 6 years previously, and I always wanted to go back. So we had this opportunity to go back with Chris and I to do this. And we did it a little differently because we had about 14 guitars shipped out, and we had a few of the museum's pieces as well. So that, if you've not been to the Musical Instrument Museum, you're missing something. It's really, no matter what brand guitar you really like, they're all there. And the history of them, the museum has stringed instruments from all over the world, dating way back in history. And a lot of the major manufacturers, Martin, Gibson, Fender, has displays set up. Like Martin, Dick went out and set up like a workshop area. So it looks like the original tooling from Martin's early time period It's all set up there. It looks like it's a workshop where they're building Martin guitars from, the
Huh.
the 18th century, 19th century. So that is a real experience. And the acoustics in the room, the presentation room, holds about 300 people. It's stadium seating. The acoustics are phenomenal. An acoustic guitar sounds like just magical in that room. It's gorgeous. So then we went down to Navajo. And I had been in Navajo before. Kit and I were there in 2019. And it was, place blew my mind. The first I saw it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is Martin South. It's just people have an impression like, what is it, primitive? No. This is a really beautiful, full service factory with passionate people, just as passionate as the folks are anywhere else in the world about Martin guitars. And they know what they're doing. They've celebrated this year their 35th anniversary. Martin first went down with the strings. That's where all the strings were set up. Still making all the strings there. And now building some really fine guitars. And I picked wood as Chris was picking wood for his, celebrating or commemorating his 50th year at Martin. And I thought, well, it'd be cool to just build maybe a custom shop guitar, because they don't really have a custom shop. So I thought, well, maybe if I just pick this wood, I'll get a one-off, which I will purchase, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm picking this wood, and Chris is looking around, and he comes up to him, he says, how would you like to have an artist model? I'm like, what? Through the years, different people have asked me this, and I'm going, oh yeah, right. I deserve an art. No. That's for that's for Eric Clapton and David Gilmour and all these people, Joan Baez. But he says, you're international. You travel. You've done a lot of work over the years with Martin. You deserve a Martin guitar. And then he talked about Diane, who he had before, or, who he used to travel with. And she got one at one point, at one stage of her career. She got one. She said, it's just like that. It's
Ponzio?
Like, okay. Yes, Diane Ponzio. Yeah. I knew her. I haven't seen her in a long time, but I did know her the last 2 years that she had done things with Martin. So she had an artist model. So now I have one, and it's still, I don't think it's sunk in completely. I pick this guitar up and I go like, oh my goodness, this is my model, and I'm just so honored and thrilled to have this guitar.
Well deserved, though. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. I designed the whole thing. They let me put it all together, pick the wood, the binding. It was a funny thing when you talked about, you don't put a herringbone on mahogany. Well, this is all sapele, back, top, sides, and I have herringbone trim, and it looks really, really cool.
That's gorgeous.
I have I picked an antique white binding too. So you got that the herringbone is like the purfling, and then the binding antique white. It offsets it against it just worked. It really worked.
It's like a beautiful cherry. It's like basically natural sapele color, but very sort of cherry mahogany hue to it.
Yes.
So take us through some of the specs. Let's say you're writing a letter to somebody who doesn't know anything about the guitar. Tell our listeners about this very cool guitar.
Well, it's a triple O size guitar, because that's my most comfortable playing guitar. I really like the size of a triple O. I like the silence. I like the balance. I like the way they record. It's just the guitar, my go-to size. And as I said, top, sides, and back are sapele, all highly figured. This is not the typical looking striped sapele, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But we picked really figured wood for this, so you'll see it. The sides and the back are kind of flamey, and it's just it's just really unusual. And I got to tell you something. Our wood buyer, Bert Germick, he sent me a picture of the actual tree in Africa where the wood for this guitar came from. It's 11 feet in diameter. It's about 240 feet tall.
Whoa.
And they guesstimated at about 500 years old. When they bought the lumber, I don't know the proper way to say that. When they purchased this in Africa, then they had it shipped, I believe, to Spain, where they actually cut it into lumber. That's when they saw that the wood was flamed and not the regular straight sapele. So, in other words, when they bought it, they didn't realize that it had this flame to it.
Wow.
So I don't know if the entire tree was like that, but a good number, they've got a lot of sets of wood of this highly figured sapele out of that tree. So that's where this came from. I just thought that was a cool story. And having the picture of the tree where the wood it's just kind of mind-blowing, you know. But we picked ebony. I wanted to go with ebony for the fingerboard, and we did the head plate and the bridge in ebony, but it's not the black ebony. It's the striped ebony. So each guitar is slightly different. The striping, the figure in the fingerboard is going to be a little different because no two pieces are the same. And as I said, it's not dyed, so it doesn't look black. It's got a really cool look, which ties in with the color on the top of the guitar, which the top of the guitar is gloss, but the back and sides are satin finish.
The top of the photos I saw of the one that you actually play, it looks even more figured than the back and sides. Are they doing that on purpose?
Yeah, I believe so. I think we kept the really coolest figuring for the top. But once you add the lacquer to that, it makes it pop. It makes it almost 3D effect that you get by looking at it. You know, I like the sound of guitars that don't have a finish on like that. They all have some sort of finish, but I do also like completely matte finish guitars. I think they have a very nice sound. I think the wood breathes nicely, and they have a great tone too. But when you add this, and I was going to go with non-lacquer, but I realized after talking with some folks that it was really going to make this aesthetically and cosmetically really pop and make it look different. I thought, okay, let's go with the gloss on the top. So that's why that's the way it is. The inlays, fingerboard inlays in the bridge, style 42. I like style 42. I have a custom shop M series or 40 that has the style 42 with the snowflakes in the bridge. I like these a lot. And I want to also mention that Navajoa, they haven't, until now, they didn't do the inlays like that. They didn't have the antique white binding, and they did not do herringbone. The folks down there learned how to do the herringbone for this guitar. And yeah, it was, when I asked for it, I didn't realize. I thought, well, they're able to do it. They actually studied it and learned how to do it. And when I got the prototype, it was perfect. They did a perfect job. You would have thought they've been doing herringbone for years. That's what the first appearance to me. It was like, wow, this is just something these guys are doing. And now they are. Now they can. So they have that ability.
Not just the purfling around the edge. You also have the herringbone rosette, the vintage style 21. So it looks similar to a 0028 EC, except it's the mahogany species for the top instead of spruce. So
exactly.
Really, yeah, lovely. And then, but you get the modern style 42, those big round snowflakes on the bridge as well. So.
Yes, they're not they're not real white. They're more of it's a multicolor. Kind of, there's some reddish, there's some clear, there's some bluish in there,
Hmm.
I'm not sure what you call that coloring, but it's a multicolored type thing. Just very light. It's not like, bright colors or anything. So when you look closely, you see these and it's like, oh, they're subtle. They're very subtle. They don't stand out like the white against the black ebony. They don't stand out like that. They're much more subtle. Um, and it has scallop bracing. We do have scallop bracing. It is the 5/16 bracing. Uh, have the LR Bags element. I'll tell you, I'm really impressed with that pickup. I believe it sounds very natural. I'm not getting that quackiness out of it that you often get with an undersaddle pickup. It's very simple. It's a simple design. It's pretty non-invasive. The control is just a volume and a tone. There's no tuner or anything else built in or blend controls. But the little control housing is a brown color, fits right inside the sound hole. And when you look at the front of the guitar, it's almost invisible. It's like it blends in so well. And I hadn't thought of that, but it's just when I saw it, it's like, oh, wow, that really blends in perfectly. So I like aesthetically, I like the way it matches with the guitar.
Yeah, it works very well with the faux tortoiseshell pickguard as well. So
Oh, yeah.
it looks like it belongs on the guitar.
Yes, it does. It does look like that.
And is it fair to say
So-
that almost all of your playing is with a thumb pick or fingernails?
Not all. A lot of it is, yeah, a lot. But I do some strumming too, like especially if I'm when we do the band, we do a quartet where I stick with the acoustic guitar. I don't go electric, so it'll be guitar, bass, drums, keyboards. I will then I do use the pick on a lot of that music. When I'm doing solo or duo, yeah, then primarily I will do a thumb pick. And I got a weird style that maybe I picked up from Freddie King or Doc Watson. I don't know. It's a thumb pick and one finger pick. Yorma uses all his fingers with metal picks, and I tried that. I couldn't get used to that. But I do like this, and I do use my fingers along with it too. So I'm not completely like Merle Travis, using just the index and the thumb. I do use my other fingers, but on this finger, I don't know, it's kind of like protection because that nail for me wears down so quickly. And if I have a finger pick on that, it helps to make it stand out a little more. So that's what I just do with that.
Are you using a steel finger pick?
I am. I tried some plastic ones. I just like the steel. I like the way they fit and feel a little better. So I do stick with that.
It's strange because I always think of EQing a guitar with bare finger pads or with bright fingernails or with finger picks. You have to basically deal with it all because you've got a combination.
Yeah, there is a combination of things going on. And I do, and I must say that this guitar records really well. You know what? There's no wolf tones in it at all. When I use a microphone or use the pickup or blend it, I don't get that woofiness. You know what I'm talking about. That which which you have to dial out. It just works. So I haven't had any issues trying to, as you say, EQ it with the plastic thumb and the metal finger and the bare fingers. I got all three going on.
Jeez.
I wish I could play with fingernails, but my thumbnail it gets very, very hard as a rock, but the other fingernails don't. Plus, I gotta admit, I work on a vintage sports car all the time, and I can't have long fingernails doing that. It just, So there you go.
Well, you mentioned about recording and combining the pickup sound with the mic sound. I appreciate that you were kind enough to send us a video ahead of time that we're going to take a minute to show our viewers now. Can you go in depth and let us know what we're hearing in that little clip you provided?
Well, I tuned to one of my favorite tunings, which is drop D, and just kind of noodled, played some, a little bit of Can't Find My Way Home and some other things on there. I blended my KM 184, the Neumann that I travel with the undersaddle pickup. I recorded that directly into my I have one of those Tascam Model 16s. I got it as soon as it came out, like 4 or 5 years ago. It's an analog mixer with the digital recorder built into it. So it works really well. But I'm also old school. Now, I didn't do that with the clip you're going to hear yet. I got 3 reel-to-reel tape recorders here. And what I often will do, yeah, I'm crazy. And I'm looking at a fourth. But what I do is I will record everything. It's so easy to record multi-track onto this Tascam Model 16. But then I run it out through the tape. And that gives it such a warm, full sound. It's pretty amazing.
Are you mixing to stereo?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
but you're running at stereo to the tape.
Yes, stereo output left and right out of the Model 16 to the input left and right on the tape deck. And then I record that, and then I can bring that back in to a DAW.
Fabulous.
And is that for the tape compression?
Yeah, I love the compression. I love the frequency response is so much wider, broader. That warmth that you get from it. I experimented with my son. Both of my sons do electronic music, and Nathan brought some tunes that he wrote and had recorded to the house here, and I said, I wonder what would happen if we ran them out through the tape deck. And we did it, and it's like, oh my God, it was a night and day difference, the fullness and richness. So it's like, well, I'm going to start doing that with everything I record on here. So it ended up work. And I know they make plugins, that simulate this, but I don't use plugins, and I just have the real analog machines. So I just do it.
You have the real.
Yeah, the real.
Let's roll the clip. It's the new Martin guitar 0011E, Craig Thatcher. That's beautiful.
I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
Well, there's the old saying when somebody buys a solid wood guitar that's the worst it's ever going to sound. It's only going to sound better and better.
Right.
But hardwood tops take a lot longer than spruce tops to break in, but that already sounds so full, and yet, like you said, balanced, really balanced across the strings.
It's very balanced, and I've been playing it. I noticed. So we released it. It's been not quite a month, and and I've been really playing it a lot because I know what you have to do to get the top moving and get everything working together. So yeah, I'm anxious to see what it's like a year from now, after a lot of playing and a lot of gigging. I really haven't had an opportunity to gig with it yet because we've been traveling with everything else, the other events that we're doing. So I really haven't had an opportunity, but I will, because from here on out through December, there's so much going on. So I'll be playing it a lot.
Not that I don't believe you, but I'm going to have to find one of those gigs and be in your audience to see if you're telling the truth.
Oh, please. There's Christmas. We do holiday events. They're always like with the 8-9-piece band. And I've been doing these for 25 years. So we'll be at Mock Chunk Opera House, the Sellersville Theater, the Allentown 19th Street Theater, and then we do the Methodist Church in Quakertown, which is huge. It's a really beautiful. We used to do the Church of the Nativity, I think they call that, the big cathedral-like place in Bethlehem. Oh my gosh, that place is. It's like a European cathedral inside with tall and big high ceilings. It's just gorgeous. Well, a lot of stone. We've recorded in there as well, but we don't do that one anymore. But yeah, so I have a number of these things coming up. I'll be using it quite a bit.
Well, Mock Chunk Opera House is in my backyard, so
great.
I'll be there.
Oh, well, let me know, and I'll get you guys. I can get you guys. I'll comp your tickets.
Oh man, yes.
Just you guys, not everybody. I can't do everyone. But
you heard it here.
Well, that sounds like about 20 gigs, don't you think, Maury? I think we're setting up our guest for a special 20 questions game. This is the game where normally one of us, either the smart guy who is Maury or the wise guy who's Spoon, thinks up a Martin guitar, and then they let the other one know they're ready to go, and the other one gets 20 questions trying to guess what Martin guitar that's available in the world today is available for sale out there, and you get up to 3 guesses. We're going to double team on Craig. He's going to think up a Martin guitar that's available. He's going to think up a Martin model, and we're going to try to guess which one it is. So pick a Martin guitar model that you know is in the catalog and out there in the world, and let us know when you're ready.
I have it in mind.
20 questions on the clock, and go. Is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Is this guitar built with the Dreadnought body size?
No.
Does this guitar have pearl anywhere on the top?
No pearl.
Is this guitar a long scale guitar?
No.
Does it have a mahogany top?
No.
Does this guitar have rosewood back and sides?
No.
Ooh.
Does it have mahogany back and sides?
No.
I think I might know what it is. Does this guitar have koa back and sides?
Yes.
Has this guitar been in the catalog longer than 1 year?
No.
Ding, 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 ding. Is this guitar associated with Hawaiian music?
Yeah, yes.
Is this guitar the Martin HG 28 Oahu?
Yes, it is.
Ding, 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 ding.
Amazing. Very good. You guys did really well.
Not really, because I just picked that one last week and stumped Maury with it.
Well, when you said a dreadnought shape, I almost said yes, but it's not
Not
traditional dreadnought shape.
No, and the whole thing's only the size of a L00, so it's only, or double OL as they call them at Martin. So yeah, so very. That was a great choice, though. They're very cool guitars, as you well know.
I love the sound, the playability. It's on my list actually. They're just shipping right now. They're shipping this right now.
Can you just, in your words, can you describe, because they call it a modified low golden era, so it's got a bigger barrel, but how would you describe how the neck feels?
Well, I feel that the narrow taper, what do they call it? It's a high
performance.
playability. High performance, yes. It has that kind. There's maybe a little bit more in the shape. There's maybe a little bit more fullness, but it's nothing like a modified V or anything quite that big. It's a very playable 1 3/4. It just is a beautiful little guitar.
Yeah, 2 1/8 at the 12th fret, and the modern high performance string spacing, but they call it GE because they've done either something to the heel or just the barrel in general to make it a little. Well, it's partly because it has an authentic series roll off on the edges of the fingerboard.
It does. And if this had been last week, I had it here because I brought it home from Nashville, and Chris told me to hold on to it to take to New York, so I did. I don't have it right now because I don't know all the specs on it. I just
sorry I couldn't make the show. Something came up that was higher paying than going to watch you guys, so I couldn't go.
No worries.
You told us about some of your gigs, but do you have anything scheduled with Martin and Chris Martin coming up, or is that all in the next year?
Well, this Friday we're flying to London, so we're going to be in the UK for the next week, and we'll get home just before Thanksgiving. In that case, when we go that far, or like we were in Japan earlier this year, we use the guitars that they have in stock. They always have a great stock. I'll just do a rough, let's have a triple O, double O, single O, if you have one in stock. And maybe if you have a 4.0, that would be great. More often than not, the 4.0s aren't available, which that's one of my favorite sizes. I wish they were more prevalent and more people like them. I think they just have to play them and get used to them. There's a little more low end than a triple O, and it's also long scale where the triple O is short scale. So you get a little more snap, a little more projection with the sound.
But they sound more like a triple O, I think, than they do even a quarter-inch OM and especially even a dreadnought or jumbo. Yeah.
Right, and they have the triple O depth, so that's one of my biggest things that I like the most.
Talking about the body depth, not the depth of the voice.
Arm, the depth of the body is much closer to a triple O than it is a dreadnought. It's not. So if you like triple O's and you want a little more of everything, the 4.0 is a good one.
We do have European listeners. Are you going to be at Hank's on Denmark Street? Is that where you guys go?
I don't have the schedule yet. We went to Denmark Street before. I loved it. It was great. I love the history. But unfortunately, I don't have my schedule yet as far as where we're going. I just know that we're flying on Friday. I did want to tell you about one guitar. We had a size 5 45. We took it down to Country Music Hall of Fame, and it is a one-off guitar, the only size 5 in the 45 style that was ever made, and Martin has it. It's from 1921. The reason we took it to the Country Music Hall of Fame is because Marty Robbins was well known for playing a size 5 guitar. So we actually had that, and I did a Marty Robbins song on this guitar. But it's a dark top. You should see it. It's a really, really cool guitar. And it's set up and play. We have currently silk and steel strings on it. So they're not gut strings. strings, but the silk and steel, a little less tension on that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to hear how it responds with steel strings, because George had a 518 in stock that he had from roughly the same era. No ornamentation, but he did have steel strings. And you know, they're tuned a third higher. So they're Turs guitars. So they're typically tuned up higher. So if you want to do like a Nashville tuning thing, you know.
I was going to say, it's like Nashville tuning without having to have Nashville tuning,
Yeah.
In Nashville.
Really,
in Nashville.
But what a cool little guitar to have, a one-off like that, that still exists, but in the 45 style with all the inlay on there. It was really cool.
Wow. Priceless.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah,
and I wanted to mention one other guitar. I don't have a huge collection anymore, but at times I've had a fair number of guitars. But I have some cool Martins. The one I have that a lot of people don't even know, either they don't know that it exists or they don't believe it exists. It's the Martin Goro 00042. It came out in 2015, end of 2015. Goro Takahashi was the designer, and he was a close friend of Eric's, Eric Clapton. And what he did was he studied with the Native Americans here for a long time period, learning turquoise, working with gold and other exotic metals and inlays, all sorts of things. So he would design many different things, not just instruments, you know. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if he designed any instruments, but he designed like leather bags and all sorts of, he was just a designer in general. And I have a book on things that he's done, jewelry particularly, that he's designed. Beautiful stuff. So Clapton wanted to commemorate his passing, or his life. Wanted to commemorate his life. He passed away, and he designed this 00042. And it is koa. It's flamed koa, back and sides. The top is Italian alpine spruce, real tight, fine grain. But the inlay is all turquoise. The binding is turquoise. The down on, instead of the snowflakes on either side of the bridge, there are little solid gold roses, like a rose petals going around on each side. And then on the headstock, on the front, you see Goro's symbol in gold dust, like gold dust that's been covered.
Wow.
He had a specific symbol. And then on the back of the headstock, like they used to say that in the late 19th century Martins, where it was stamped on the back, that's where it's stamped Martin on this one. It's a really cool guitar.
Amazing.
It's one that I don't really take out because I tend to really beat up guitars when I'm playing them all the time. This one I've kept really neat, but boy, is it a cool guitar.
Would there be a chance you could share a picture with us later offline?
Yeah, if I held it up, would you be able to see it?
I think so.
Do you have a minute that I can get it?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see this.
Oh man.
Yeah, hold it
But
still. Hold it slow. Yeah, hold it still. Yeah, beautiful.
You see the roses?
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you see the head here at the headstock?
Now, see, and that's vintage style 42. Oh, that's style
Yes.
40, actually. Vintage style 40 markers. Very cool.
It's a 00042 guitar with the other style. Yes.
Yeah,
inlays.
old style.
Do you see that
Gorgeous.
symbol on the top?
I do.
Like a dove.
That's and then this is, look at that.
Look at that ceiling fan.
That's the koa.
Yeah, gorgeous.
That's pretty.
Gorgeous.
I'm teasing.
Yeah,
I'm teasing.
It really reflects everything. Yeah, I can't get it to where it doesn't reflect.
Is that a Koa ceiling fan? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
inside, there's a picture of Goro and a picture of Goro and Eric. And then Chris signed it, Dick signed it, and Hiroshi Fujiwara, who is another designer who helped in this whole guitar too, another Japanese designer who has done some work for Martin before. All three of them signed the label, but it's a pretty unique guitar. They made 39 of these.
Wow.
And this is number 7.
Wow. Lucky 7.
Beautiful.
I
Yeah,
thought your
lucky 7.
D35 David Gilmour was an amazing guitar, but
You want to see that? You want to see that one?
well, I'd like to see it. Yeah, I'd like to play it, but yeah.
So I was doing a Martin video in the museum, and they gave me this guitar to play. I mean, I play a lot of dreadnoughts when we do the events, but I hadn't owned a dreadnought in 20 years. And I played one chord on this guitar, and it's like, oh, can I buy one of these? And it's the David Gilmour D35.
Wow.
But
That
what they did
sold
with the
out
Gilmour
before it was even known about, really. It just went poop.
Yeah.
It's just gone.
Yeah. And it's sinker mahogany. So you think about it, the wood, the trees were probably 100 years old when they cut them down, and then they were under the water, the logs were under the water for another 100 years. So it's really old wood, reclaimed, some of the logs would be chained together when they cut them down, go into the sawmill, and certain logs sank. And they reclaimed them, and it's an Adirondack top, and it has the beautiful herring binding, and it's just a big, rich sounding D35 out of mahogany. I don't know that there ever was a D35 with mahogany. There always been rosewood, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's pretty unique. There's
nice.
a couple.
Awesome.
Well, I can't thank you enough for spending all this time with us, Craig. This has been a really great episode, and
Thank you.
I'm flattered that we got to get a little bit of an in-depth. The only question I failed to ask you earlier, the specs you chose for your new custom signature model, can you walk us through was it pretty quickly just going to be that, or was there ever a chance it was going to be slightly different? If so, what did you kind of waffle on as far as the outcome?
Well, the specs, actually, everything that I had asked for was done. I was originally, there's one thing I was originally going to do a little, like a Mexican art design and put it in the headstock and say something about Navajoa. It would get a little complicated, and price-wise, it might have pushed it up a little too far out of the range. So what they did is they inside where the label is, there's a little silver commemorative emblem commemorating Navajoa's 35th anniversary. So that's in there, and we didn't put it on the top. That's the only thing that we changed from the specs. Everything else I asked for was done.
I forgot to ask you about the manatees.
When Martin does signature model guitars, the artists pick a beneficiary. So in other words, you don't get royalties from the guitar. Somebody else does. So in my case, I have affinity for manatees. They're such beautiful creatures and so docile. And if you've ever swam with the manatees or see these, they're in Florida, of course, but they're also in Mexico. So they're over in those waters as well. So it kind of tied in. So the manatees was started by Jimmy Buffett and the then mayor, whose name escapes my mind. It was about 1987-ish is when they started that organization. So we chose that, and the folks at Martin made up a beautiful label. the manatee in the background. And then Chris and I both signed it. And I want to add also, I did not want to put my signature anywhere. No inlays, nothing at the top, not on the back. I just didn't.
No.
You know, it's just a cool guitar. My signature doesn't mean anything on it. So I signed the label. Chris signed the label. That's the only place. So I've already spoken with people who just wouldn't want to play a guitar with somebody else's signature for one reason or another. So I respect that. So therefore, you don't have to worry about it. If you don't know me or don't like me, it's okay. You can still like the guitar. So there you go.
Well, if they don't like you, that proves they don't know you. So.
Oh, it's kind. Thank you.
Closing words here at the closing ceremonies part of the show. Where can our viewers and listeners find more about Craig Thatcher?
Well, the best place for me, honestly, I put everything on Facebook. The website, craigthatcher.com, but I have to do something different. I'm losing the host right now, and I can't go in and really manipulate anything except the schedule. So that's one of my New Year's resolutions, to go in and find some other place and do a new site. So I will get that up. The schedule's on there, and there's a background material on there, but it's pretty dated. But Facebook, I put all the gigs. I post various things on Facebook, videos and things. It's just the craigthatcher.com Facebook page. That works.
Awesome. And Spoon said I should ask you, because he's bashful, do you need 2 assistants?
To go to where? To go
Everywhere.
to London this Friday? Oh yeah. You always need assistance. Yeah. But I just want to say thank you, and once again, I'm just so honored and thrilled, and still in disbelief that I got that signature guitar. And this situation with Martin, and the way Chris and I work and travel together and have become good friends, and everybody else, both in Navajo and in Nazareth. I couldn't find a finer group of people anywhere.
Good on you, man. Well, from all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.
Peace.